He told me my family was toxic, that only he truly understood me, and I believed him. I cut everyone off, my parents, my friends, even my siblings. It was just me and him. Until one day, he vanished. And weeks later, I saw the unthinkable. He had married my sister. Yes, my sister. Want to know how he got inside my head? This isn't just my story. It's a warning. My name is... Let's call me Isabella. The man in this story, we'll call him Damien. And my sister, we'll call her Victoria. What I'm about to tell you happened over the course of 3 years. 3 years where I lost myself completely. 3 years where I became a stranger to my own family. 3 years that ended with the most devastating betrayal I could ever imagine. This is a story about psychological manipulation, about how someone can systematically destroy your relationships, your self-worth, and your reality itself, and then disappear into the life you once had, taking everything that mattered to you. If you've ever wondered how intelligent, strong people can fall victim to emotional abuse, if you've ever asked yourself, why didn't she just leave? This story will show you exactly how it happens, because it happened to me, and it could happen to anyone. By the end of this story, you'll understand how Damien didn't just steal my life. He stole my identity, my family, and my future, and replaced it all with a carefully constructed prison that I didn't even realize I was in, until it was too late. 3 years ago, I was 26 years old, working as a marketing coordinator for a mid-sized advertising agency in Portland. I had my own apartment, a close-knit group of friends, and a loving family that lived just 20 minutes away. I saw my parents, Richard and Catherine, at least twice a week. Sunday dinners were sacred in our family. My younger sister, Victoria, who was 24, was my best friend. We talked every day, shared clothes, shared secrets, shared everything. Victoria was always the more outgoing one. Where I was cautious and analytical, she was spontaneous and trusting. Where I overthought everything, she followed her heart. People were drawn to her magnetic personality and infectious laugh. Our family wasn't perfect, but we were close. Really close. That's important to remember, because later, Damien would convince me that everything I'm telling you now was a lie, that my memories of happiness were fabricated, that my family's love was conditional and toxic. But it wasn't. We were genuinely happy. I met Damien at a coffee shop on a rainy Thursday morning in October. I was running late for work, stressed about a presentation, fumbling with my laptop bag and umbrella when I literally bumped into him. "Whoa there," he said, catching my arm as I nearly fell. "You okay?" He was gorgeous, tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair that looked effortlessly messy, piercing blue eyes, and a smile that made my stomach flip. He was wearing a perfectly fitted black coat and expensive-looking shoes. "I'm so sorry," I stammered, completely flustered. "I'm such a mess this morning." "You're not a mess," he said, and the way he looked at me made me feel like I was the only person in the world. "You're beautiful, and you look like you could use some coffee." He bought me coffee. Not just any coffee. He somehow knew exactly how I liked it. Medium roast, 1 sugar, splash of vanilla cream. When I asked how he knew, he said, "Lucky guess. I'm good at reading people." We talked for an hour. I completely missed my morning meetings, but I didn't care. Damien was fascinating. He was a freelance business consultant, he said, working with companies to optimize their operations. He'd lived in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. He had stories about traveling the world, insights about human psychology, opinions about everything. Most importantly, he seemed genuinely interested in me. He asked thoughtful questions about my work, my goals, my thoughts on life. He listened, really listened, in a way that made me feel heard and understood. "You're incredibly insightful, Isabella," he said at one point. "Most people your age don't have such a clear perspective on life. When he asked for my number, I gave it to him immediately. That night he texted, "I can't stop thinking about our conversation. You're different from other people. Special. I'd love to see you again." I was smitten. Looking back now, I can see all the red flags that I missed. But at the time, Damien felt like a dream come true. The next 3 weeks were like something out of a romantic movie. Damien pursued me with an intensity I'd never experienced before. He texted me good morning every day with thoughtful messages. "Hope your presentation goes well today. You're going to be amazing. Thinking about that thing you said about creativity and marketing. You're brilliant." He sent flowers to my office. Not just once, but 3 times in 2 weeks. Each time with handwritten notes that referenced specific things from our conversations. Our dates were incredible. He took me to places I'd never been. Hidden speakeasies, art galleries, exclusive restaurants. He seemed to know everyone and everything about the city. "How do you know about all these places?" I asked during our 4th date. "I pay attention," he said. "Most people just go through life on autopilot. But when you really observe, really connect with people, you discover amazing things." He was attentive in ways that felt magical. He remembered everything I said. If I mentioned loving a particular type of wine, he'd surprise me with a bottle the next week. If I said I was stressed about work, he'd show up with my favorite takeout and insist on giving me a massage. The physical chemistry was intense. He was an incredible lover, attentive, passionate, completely focused on my pleasure. He made me feel desired in ways I'd never experienced. But more than that, he made me feel understood. "You're so different from other women I've dated," he told me one night as we lay in bed. "You're authentic, real. Most people wear masks, but with you, I can see straight to your soul." He started saying he loved me after just 3 weeks. It felt fast, but also right. I'd never connected with someone so deeply, so quickly. "I know this might sound crazy," he said one evening, "but I think we're meant to be together. I've never felt this way about anyone." I felt the same way. I was falling in love, hard and fast. He started staying over most nights. He kept clothes at my apartment. We fell into a routine that felt comfortable and natural. My friends noticed the change in me. I was happier, more confident, glowing, with new love. "He sounds amazing," my best friend Chloe said. "When do we get to meet him?" "Soon," I promised. "He's just been really busy with work." But every time I brought up introducing him to my friends or family, Damien had a reason why it wasn't the right time. "I want to make a good impression," he'd say. "Let me get through this big project first, then we can plan something special." It seemed reasonable, sweet even. He wanted everything to be perfect. I had no idea that he was already studying my family and friends, learning everything about them, preparing for the next phase of his plan. The first crack in my relationships started so subtly that I barely noticed it. It was during my weekly coffee date with my sister Victoria. We were catching up, laughing about something stupid we'd done as kids, when she asked about Damien. "So when do I get to meet this mysterious boyfriend?" she teased. "You've been together for 2 months and we haven't even seen a photo." I showed her a picture on my phone. Her reaction was immediate. Her eyes lit up and she whistled appreciatively. "Wow, Isabella, he's really attractive, like model attractive. How did you land him?" Something about the way she said it stung. "What do you mean? How did I land him?" "Oh, I didn't mean anything bad," she said quickly. "It's just, you usually date guys who are more normal. This guy looks like he could be dating anyone." When I told Damien about the conversation later, his reaction was gentle but pointed. "I'm sorry she said that to you," he said, stroking my hair. "That must have hurt." "It did, a little." He said carefully, "I've noticed that pattern. With siblings sometimes. When one person finds happiness, the other can become competitive, jealous even. Victoria's not jealous, I said automatically. We're really close. Of course, he said. I'm sure she loves you. It's just, sometimes love can be complicated. Sometimes people who care about us can't help but tear us down when we're succeeding. He let that sit for a moment, then added, but hey, what do I know? I don't have siblings. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. The seed was planted. Over the next few weeks, I found myself analyzing my interactions with Victoria differently. When she made jokes about my relationship, I wondered if there was jealousy underneath. When she seemed distracted during our conversations, I wondered if she was losing interest in my life. Damien never directly criticized Victoria. Instead, he'd make observational comments that felt like insights. Your sister seems stressed lately. Maybe she's going through something? Did you notice how she changed the subject when you mentioned our weekend plans? That's interesting. She asks a lot of questions about me. That's protective, I guess. Or maybe curious. Each comment was delivered with concern, never accusation. But they accumulated in my mind, creating doubt where none had existed before. The same thing started happening with my friends. When Chloe canceled plans last minute because of work, Damien said, "That's disappointing. Real friends make time." You know? When my friend Marcus made a sarcastic comment about my newfound happiness, Damien observed, "He seems uncomfortable with your growth. Some people prefer their friends to stay stagnant." When my college roommate Sarah forgot my birthday, Damien noted, "If someone really cares about you, they remember what matters to you." None of these comments felt manipulative at the time. They felt like the observations of someone who loved me and wanted to protect me from people who didn't appreciate me properly. I started noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. Small slights, moments of inattention, signs that maybe my relationships weren't as solid as I'd thought. 2.5 months into our relationship, I finally convinced Damien to come to Sunday dinner with my family. "I want them to love you as much as I do," I told him. He agreed, but seemed nervous. "What if they don't approve of me?" "They're going to adore you," I assured him. I spent the entire week preparing my parents. I told them how wonderful Damien was, how happy he made me, how important this dinner was to me. "We can't wait to meet him, sweetheart," my mom said. "Anyone who makes you this happy is already family to us." The dinner started well. Damien was charming, polite, asking thoughtful questions about my dad's work, complimenting my mom's cooking, showing interest in Victoria's new job. But then my dad started asking more pointed questions. "So what exactly do you do for work, Damien?" "I'm a business consultant. I help companies optimize their operations and improve their culture." "That's interesting. What kind of companies?" "Mostly mid-sized corporations, manufacturing, tech, some retail. I prefer to keep client information confidential, of course." "Of course. And you travel a lot for this work?" "Some. It depends on the project." My dad kept pushing, gently but persistently. What company did he work for? How long had he been consulting? Did he have references? I could see Damien getting uncomfortable, and I felt embarrassed by my father's interrogation. "Dad, you don't need to interview him," I said, laughing nervously. "I'm just getting to know him," my dad said. "When my daughter brings home someone serious, I want to understand who he is." Victoria jumped in with her own questions. Where did he grow up? What did his family do? Where did he go to college? Damien answered everything politely, but I could sense his growing discomfort. Then Victoria made a comment that changed everything. "You know, you look really familiar," she said, studying his face. "Have we met before? Maybe at one of Isabella's work events?" Damien's expression flickered for just a moment, a flash of something I couldn't identify. "I don't think so," he said. "I have one of those faces, I guess. People often think they know me." But Victoria kept staring at him like she was trying to place him. The rest of the dinner was tense. My family seemed distant, asking fewer questions, making polite but cooler conversation. When we left, I was mortified. I'm so sorry, I told Damien in the car. They're usually much warmer than that. It's okay, he said, but I could tell he was hurt. Some families are protective. I understand. They were being ridiculous. All those questions. Your dad was just looking out for you, and your sister. He paused. I don't know. She seemed suspicious of me from the start. She was probably just nervous. She wants to make sure I'm happy. Maybe, Damien said. Or maybe she sees something she doesn't like. Some people have strong instincts about others. The way he said, it made me feel like Victoria had failed some kind of test. That night, Victoria called me. Isabella, can we talk about Damien? What about him? I don't know. Something feels off. He was charming, but it felt performative, and I swear I've seen him before somewhere. You're being paranoid. Maybe. But his answers about work were vague. And did you notice how he deflected every personal question? I had noticed, but Damien's explanation made sense to me. He's private. Not everyone overshares like our family. I'm just saying, be careful. Something doesn't feel right. After I hung up, I felt angry. My family hadn't given Damien a fair chance. They'd made him uncomfortable with their suspicion and judgment. When I told Damien about Victoria's call, his response was measured and sad. I'm sorry she feels that way, he said. I really tried to make a good impression. You were perfect. They're just overprotective. Maybe it's better if I don't go to family events for a while, he said. I don't want to cause tension between you and your family. It seemed like a reasonable solution, but it was actually the beginning of my isolation. Over the next month, Damien never directly told me to stop seeing my family. Instead, he created situations where spending time with them became uncomfortable or impossible. When I had plans for Sunday dinner, he'd have a work crisis that required my emotional support. When Victoria wanted to go shopping, he'd plan a surprise, romantic getaway. When my mom called during our time together, he'd look hurt and say, I understand. Family comes first. The guilt was unbearable. Here was this amazing man who loved me completely, and I was prioritizing other people over him. Damien started sharing more about his own childhood, a tragic story of emotional abuse, family betrayal, and abandonment. My parents never really loved me, he told me one night, tears in his eyes. They were always comparing me to my brother, telling me I wasn't good enough. When I finally succeeded in business, they suddenly wanted a relationship. But it was too late. That's horrible, I said, holding him close. The hardest part is learning to trust people again, to believe that someone could love me unconditionally. He looked at me intensely. You're the first person who's ever made me feel truly accepted. These conversations made my family's skepticism seem even more unfair. How could they judge someone who'd been through so much? How could they not see the vulnerable, loving man I saw? Meanwhile, Damien began pointing out patterns in my family's behavior that I'd never noticed. Have you ever considered that your parents might be controlling? He asked, after my mom called to check on me during a date. Controlling? They're just concerned. Maybe, but think about it. They want to know where you are, who you're with, what you're doing. That's not normal for a 26-year-old woman. They've always been involved in my life. Exactly. And when do you think they'll stop? When you're 30, 40, 50? Some parents never let their children become independent adults. He was patient with these observations, never pushing too hard, always letting me draw my own conclusions. And Victoria, he said another time, have you noticed how she always has an opinion about your choices? Your job, your apartment, now your relationship? She's my sister. We talk about everything. Of course. But there's a difference between supportive conversation and, what would you call it? Control through concern? I started paying attention to these patterns, and once I started looking for control and manipulation, I found it everywhere. When my dad asked about my career plans, I heard control instead of interest. When my mom worried about my late nights out, I heard possessiveness instead of love. When Victoria questioned my decisions, I heard jealousy instead of concern. Damien never told me these interpretations were correct. He just asked questions that led me to these conclusions myself. "What do you think?" he'd say. "You know your family better than anyone." But the truth was, I was starting to feel like I didn't know them at all. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving. My family had planned their usual big celebration: extended family, traditional dinner, football games, and hours of conversation. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks, excited to share my happiness with everyone. But 3 days before Thanksgiving, Damien got devastating news. "My business partner stole our biggest client," he told me, his voice shaking. 3 years of work, gone. He's been going behind my back for months. I'd never seen him so broken. He was inconsolable, talking about bankruptcy, about losing everything he'd worked for, about not knowing who to trust anymore. "I'm so sorry," I said, holding him while he cried. "What can I do?" "I don't know. I need you right now. I know that's selfish, but you're the only good thing in my life. Of course I'm here for you. But you have Thanksgiving with your family. You should go. I'll be fine." The way he said it, so brave, so selfless, broke my heart. How could I abandon him during the worst crisis of his life to eat turkey with my family? "I'm not leaving you," I said. "Family will understand." "Are you sure? I don't want to come between you and your family." "You're not. This is my choice." When I called my mom to cancel, her reaction was immediate and strong. "Isabella, you can't miss Thanksgiving. This is important family time. Damien is having a crisis. He needs me." "What kind of crisis is more important than family?" I explained about the business betrayal, but my mom didn't seem sympathetic. "Honey, these things happen in business. It's not the end of the world. He's an adult. He can handle one difficult day." "You don't understand. He's been betrayed by someone he trusted. He's devastated. And you've been looking forward to this dinner for months. Your grandmother is coming. Your cousins flew in from Seattle. I'll see them another time." "Isabella," my mom's voice got firm. "This is manipulation. He's making you choose between him and your family." "That's not true. He told me to go to dinner. This is my choice. Think about this rationally. You've been with this man for 4 months. We're your family." The conversation escalated. My mom accused Damien of being controlling. I accused her of being unsupportive. We both said things we couldn't take back. "If you choose him over your family on Thanksgiving," my mom said finally, "you're making a statement about your priorities." "Yes, I am," I said. "I'm choosing the person who loves and supports me unconditionally." "We love and support you unconditionally." "No, you don't. You love me conditionally, as long as I make choices you approve of." I hung up. Damien found me crying in the kitchen. "What happened?" he asked gently. I told him about the conversation. He listened without comment, just holding me. "Maybe you should go," he said finally. "I don't want to cause problems with your family. They're being unreasonable. They should understand that I need to be here for you." "I appreciate that," he said. "But family is important, maybe more important than I realized." The way he said it, with such sadness, such resignation, made me even more determined to stay. We spent Thanksgiving together, just the two of us. Damien cooked an incredible meal, and we talked for hours about life, love, and loyalty. "I can't believe you chose me over your family," he said. "No one has ever put me first before." "You're my priority now," I said. "That's what love means." It felt romantic and significant. I was choosing true love over obligation, but my family saw it differently. After Thanksgiving, my relationship with my family was never the same. My parents were hurt and angry. They felt I'd rejected them for a man I'd known for just a few months. They couldn't understand how I could miss such an important family gathering. Victoria was more direct in her disapproval. "Isabella, what's happening to you?" she asked during a tense coffee meeting. "This isn't like you." "I'm in love. I'm happy. Why can't you be happy for me?" "Because you're disappearing. You've missed 3 family dinners. You canceled our sister weekend, and now Thanksgiving. When do we see you anymore?" "You see me all the time, for an hour here and there, when Damien doesn't need you for something more important. That's not fair, isn't it? Name the last time we hung out for more than 2 hours without you checking your phone or cutting it short because he needed you." "I couldn't. He's going through a difficult time," I said defensively. "What about your difficult time? What about when you needed support during your job stress last month? Where was he?" "He was dealing with his business crisis. His crisis has been going on for 2 months, Isabella. At what point does supporting him become enabling him?" The conversation hurt because part of me knew Victoria was right. Damien's business crisis had stretched on indefinitely. There was always another setback, another betrayal, another reason he needed my complete emotional support. But when I tried to bring up Victoria's concerns with Damien, his response was devastating. "She's trying to break us up," he said quietly. "What?" "No, she's not. She's concerned about me." "Isabella, think about this objectively. Your sister sees that you're happy with me, and instead of celebrating your happiness, she's trying to convince you that I'm bad for you. What does that tell you about her motives?" "She's just worried." "About what? That you might choose me over her? That you might not need her approval anymore?" The more I thought about it, the more sense it made. Victoria had always been used to being the center of attention, the one everyone loved best. Maybe my relationship with Damien threatened that dynamic. "Some people," Damien said gently, "love you as long as you stay in the role they've assigned you. But when you grow beyond that role, when you choose your own path, they can't handle it." "You think my family wants to keep me in a role?" "I think your family loves a version of you, the version that needed them, that asked for their advice, that made them feel important. But they're struggling with this new version of you, the confident, independent woman who knows what she wants." It made terrible sense. My family's criticism of Damien wasn't really about him. It was about their fear of losing control over me. "What should I do?" I asked. "That's up to you," Damien said. "But you might need to set some boundaries. Show them that you're an adult who can make her own decisions." Setting boundaries felt empowering. When my parents called to lecture me about my choices, I told them I wouldn't discuss my relationship anymore. When Victoria criticized Damien, I changed the subject or ended the conversation. "I'm not going to defend my happiness to people who should be celebrating it," I told Damien. "I'm proud of you," he said. "It takes courage to stand up for yourself." But the boundaries created distance. My parents backed off, hurt and confused. Victoria stopped pushing, but she also stopped confiding in me about her own life. Family dinners became awkward affairs where everyone avoided talking about anything meaningful. I started attending less frequently, telling myself it was because the atmosphere was uncomfortable. Damien was supportive through all of it. "I'm sorry your family is making this difficult," he said. "But real love requires sacrifice sometimes." I was sacrificing my family for love, and I believed I was doing the right thing. By month 6 of our relationship, I had effectively cut off most of my relationships outside of Damien. It wasn't a conscious decision. It happened gradually, as a series of small choices that felt reasonable at the time. When Chloe invited me to her birthday party, I couldn't go because Damien had planned a surprise weekend trip. When my college friends organized a reunion, I skipped it because Damien was having anxiety about a potential client meeting. Each time, the choice felt obvious. Of course, I would prioritize the man I loved over casual social obligations. "Your friends don't seem to understand how serious our relationship is," Damien observed after I turned down another invitation. "What do you mean?" "They keep expecting you to be available for random social events like you're still single. They're not respecting that you have a partner now." "Maybe they're just used to the old me." "Exactly. They want you to stay the same person you were before you found real love. That's limiting." I started noticing how my friends talked about my relationship. They made jokes about how I was whipped or totally obsessed. They rolled their eyes when I mentioned Damien. They seemed annoyed when I brought him up in conversation. "Why do you think they react that way?" Damien asked when I told him about their behavior. "I don't know. Maybe they're jealous? Or maybe they preferred you when you were single and available to entertain them. Some friendships are based on convenience rather than genuine connection." The more I thought about it, the more I realized how superficial some of my friendships were. We talked about work gossip, dating drama, and weekend plans. But did they really know me? Did they support my growth and happiness? Damien, on the other hand, knew everything about me. He listened to my deepest thoughts, supported my dreams, and loved me unconditionally. "You're growing beyond your old social circle," he told me. "That's natural. Most people never evolve past their college-level friendships, but you're becoming someone more sophisticated, more self-aware." It felt good to think of myself as evolving rather than isolating. Meanwhile, Damien's business crisis had resolved, but he'd developed new challenges: anxiety, depression, trust issues from the betrayal. He needed consistent emotional support to function. "I don't know what I'd do without you," he told me regularly. "You're the only person who understands me." I became his therapist, his motivation, his reason for getting out of bed. It felt meaningful to be so needed, so important to someone's well-being, but it was exhausting. I started feeling guilty anytime I wanted to do something alone. If I went to yoga class, Damien would be having a panic attack when I got home. If I stayed late at work, he'd be depressed and withdrawn by the time I arrived. "I'm sorry I'm so needy," he'd say. "I know it's not fair to you." "It's okay," I'd tell him. "I want to be here for you. I just can't handle being alone right now. But that's my problem, not yours." The way he took responsibility for his needs, while expressing them, made me feel like supporting him was my choice rather than his demand. Gradually, my world shrank to just our apartment, my job, and Damien. I stopped going to yoga, stopped meeting friends for coffee, stopped calling my family. I told myself I was prioritizing what mattered most. But the truth was, I was disappearing. 8 months into our relationship, I began to notice changes in myself that were hard to ignore. I'd lost 15 pounds without trying. I was having trouble sleeping. I felt anxious when I was away from Damien for more than a few hours. At work, my performance was slipping. I missed deadlines, forgot meetings, seemed distracted and unfocused. "Isabella, is everything okay?" my boss Sarah asked during my performance review. "You seem different lately." "I'm fine," I said automatically. "Just some personal stuff going on." "Want to talk about it?" "You know I'm here if you need support." For a moment, I considered telling her everything. About Damien's constant crises, about the exhaustion of being someone's sole source of emotional support, about how I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt genuinely happy. But then I remembered how Damien had explained that people who hadn't experienced true love couldn't understand the depth of our connection. "It's nothing serious," I said. "Just relationship stuff." Sarah looked concerned, but didn't push. That night, I mentioned the conversation to Damien. "What did you tell her?" he asked, and something in his tone made me nervous. "Nothing specific, just that I had some personal stuff going on." "Did you mention me?" "Not by name." "Good," he said, relaxing. "I just prefer to keep our relationship private. People at work don't need to know our personal business." "Why does it matter?" "Office politics can be complicated. If people think your personal life is affecting your work, it could impact your career." It made sense, but something about his concern felt disproportionate. A few days later, Victoria called me out of the blue. "Isabella, I miss you," she said, and she sounded like she was crying. "I miss you too. Can we have lunch this weekend? Just us? I feel like we haven't really talked in months." I wanted to say yes, but I knew Damien had been planning for us to spend the weekend apartment hunting. We'd been talking about moving in together officially, and he'd been excited about looking at places. "This weekend is bad," I said. "Maybe. Next week?" "You always say next week. What's going on? Are you okay? You sound tired." "I'm fine. Just busy." "With him?" The way she said him, like Damien was a disease I'd contracted, made me angry. "With my life, Victoria. With my relationship. And my future. Isabella, I'm worried about you. You've lost weight, you look exhausted, and I never see you anymore unless he approves it." "That's not true." "When's the last time we hung out without you asking his permission first?" "I couldn't remember. I don't ask his permission. I coordinate. With him because we're a couple. That's what couples do." "No, Isabella. Couples communicate and compromise. They don't control each other's schedules. He doesn't control my schedule." "Then have lunch with me this Saturday, right now. Make the decision without texting him first." The request felt like a trap. Not because Damien would be angry, he'd probably be supportive, but because the idea of making plans without considering his feelings first felt wrong. "I can't," I said. "Why not?" Because we have plans." "Plans you can't change?" "Plans that are important to our future together." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "Isabella," she said finally, "do you hear yourself? You can't have lunch with your sister because it might interfere with apartment hunting that you could do literally any other weekend. It's not that simple." "It is exactly that simple. Unless you're in an unhealthy relationship where you can't make independent decisions." I hung up on her, but her words haunted me. 10 months into our relationship, I was planning our future together. Damien and I had found the perfect apartment, a beautiful 2-bedroom in the hills with a view of the city. We'd put down a deposit, planned our move-in date, even started shopping for furniture. I was happier than I'd been in months. Finally, it felt like Damien's emotional crisis was stabilizing. He was talking about expanding his business, taking on new clients, building something lasting. "I want to marry you someday," he told me one night as we lay in bed. "I want to build a life with you that's everything we've dreamed of." "Someday?" I teased. "How about soon?" "Soon," he agreed, kissing my forehead. "Very soon." I started imagining our wedding. Small, intimate, maybe just us and a few close friends. My family would come around eventually. Once they saw how happy Damien made me, they'd understand why I'd made the choices I'd made. Everything felt perfect. And then, one Tuesday morning, Damien didn't come home. He'd left Monday morning for what he said was a client meeting in Seattle. "I'll be back Tuesday night," he promised. "Wednesday at the latest if the meeting runs long." Tuesday night came and went. No Damien, no phone call. I tried calling him. Straight to voicemail. I tried texting. No response. By Wednesday evening, I was panicking. Had he been in an accident? Was he hurt? Had something happened to him? I called hospitals in Seattle. No one matching his description had been admitted. I called the police. They said they couldn't file a missing person report for an adult who'd been gone less than 48 hours. Maybe he just needed some space, the officer suggested. Relationship troubles? "No," I said firmly. "We don't have relationship troubles. We're moving in together. We're planning our future." But as the days passed, I started questioning everything. Had he seemed distant lately? Had I missed signs that he was unhappy? I went through our recent conversations, our text messages, looking for clues. Everything seemed normal, loving. He'd been excited about the apartment, about our future, about us. By the weekend, I was a wreck. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything but my phone, waiting for it to ring. I called his business contacts, the few I knew about. None of them had heard from him. Some didn't even seem to know who he was, Damien. Rodriguez, one potential client said when I called. I don't have anyone by that name in my system. Are you sure you have the right company? I started to realize how little I actually knew about Damien's professional life. He'd always been vague about clients, citing confidentiality agreements. I'd trusted him, respected his privacy. But now, I wondered if there was a different reason for the secrecy. After a week of silence, I had to face the possibility that Damien had left me voluntarily. But why? And why now, when everything was going so well? The not knowing was torture. 2 weeks after Damien disappeared, I was at the grocery store, numbly going through the motions of buying food I had no appetite for, when I saw her. Victoria. She was in the produce section, laughing at something on her phone, looking radiant, and happy in a way I hadn't seen in months. For a moment I felt a surge of resentment. How could she be so carefree when my world was falling apart? But then I realized I missed her. I missed my sister desperately. All the arguments, all the tension, all the distance between us suddenly seemed stupid and pointless. Damien was gone, and I needed my family. I walked over to her, ready to apologize, ready to admit that maybe she'd been right about some things. Victoria? She looked up, startled. Isabella? Hi. Hi. I felt suddenly awkward. How are you? I'm good. Really good, actually. She paused, studying my face. You look terrible. Are you okay? I almost broke down right there in the middle of the grocery store. No, I'm not okay. Damien he's been gone for 2 weeks. I don't know where he is or if he's ever coming back. Victoria's expression changed completely. Oh my God, Isabella. I'm so sorry. What happened? I don't know. He went to Seattle for a business meeting and just vanished. He won't answer his phone, won't respond to texts. It's like he doesn't exist anymore. Victoria looked uncomfortable, like she was debating whether to say something. What? I asked. What is it? Isabella, can we go somewhere private to talk? We went to a coffee shop near the grocery store. Victoria ordered for both of us while I tried to compose myself. Okay, she said, sitting down across from me. I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it. What? I saw Damien 3 days ago. My heart stopped. What? Where? At the mall. He was with someone. With who? A client? A friend? Victoria looked miserable. Isabella, he was with a woman. They looked like a couple, holding hands, kissing. The coffee shop started spinning around me. That's impossible. You must have seen someone who looked like him. It was him. I'm sure of it. No. I was shaking my head frantically. No, you're wrong. Damien wouldn't. We're moving in together. We're planning our future. Isabella, you never liked him. You're making this up because you want to break us up. Why would I lie about something like this? Because you're jealous. Because you can't stand that I found someone who loves me. But even as I said it, I knew Victoria was telling the truth. Her face, her voice, her obvious reluctance to hurt me, she wasn't lying. Who was she? I asked quietly. I don't know. Young, blonde, pretty. They seemed comfortable together, like they'd been together for a while. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. While I'd been worried sick about him, imagining him dead in a ditch somewhere, he'd been with another woman. But worse than the betrayal was the realization that I had no one to turn to. I'd cut off all my friends for Damien. I'd damaged my relationship with my family for Damien. I'd made him the center of my universe, and now that universe had collapsed. I was completely alone. 3 weeks after Victoria told me about seeing Damien with another woman, I got a text from my mom. Can you call me? It's important. I'd been avoiding my family since the grocery store encounter with Victoria. I was too humiliated to face their sympathy or their "I told you so" attitudes. but something in my mom's tone made me call back immediately. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Honey, I need you to sit down." "I'm already sitting. What is it?" My mom took a deep breath. "Victoria is engaged." For a moment, I felt happy for her. Despite everything, Victoria was still my sister, and she deserved love and happiness. "That's wonderful," I said. "Who's the guy?" The silence on the other end of the line stretched too long. "Mom? Isabella? It's Damien." The words didn't make sense. I heard them, but they couldn't be real. "What?" "Victoria is engaged to Damien. You're Damien." The phone slipped from my hand. I could hear my mom's voice calling my name, but it sounded like it was coming from underwater. This was impossible. Victoria and Damien had barely met. They'd only seen each other at that one disastrous family dinner months ago. I picked up the phone with shaking hands. "That's impossible," I whispered. "I know this is shocking. It's impossible. They don't even know each other." "Isabella, they've been seeing each other for 4 months. 4 months. That meant he'd been with Victoria since before he disappeared, maybe even longer." "How?" I asked. "According to Victoria, he contacted her a few months ago. Said he was worried about you, that you seemed depressed and isolated. He wanted her help planning an intervention. An intervention. For my supposed depression and isolation. The depression and isolation he had caused. They started meeting to discuss how to help you," my mom continued. "And somewhere along the way, they developed feelings for each other. The manipulation was breathtaking. He'd used my own sister's love for me against both of us." "Does she know?" I asked. "Does she know that he was living with me? That we were planning to move in together?" She says you two had broken up months ago, that you told her you were just friends." "I never told her that." "I know, sweetheart. I think she believed what she wanted to believe." "Where are they now?" "They're living together. In the apartment you two were supposed to move into. The apartment we'd picked out together. The apartment where I'd imagined our future. He'd taken my life, my home, my sister, and my future, and he'd given it all to Victoria instead." I drove to the apartment, in a state of numb shock. Part of me still couldn't believe this was real. Part of me thought I'd get there and find out it was all a horrible misunderstanding. But when I arrived, I saw Victoria's car in the parking space that was supposed to be mine. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, trying to gather the courage to go upstairs. Finally, I walked to the door and knocked. Victoria answered. She was wearing a beautiful engagement ring and a sundress I'd never seen before. She looked happy and glowing in a way that made my chest ache. "Isabella," she said, her face falling, "what are you doing here?" "I came to see my apartment," I said. "The apartment I picked out. The apartment I put a deposit on." "Isabella, where is he?" Victoria stepped aside reluctantly, and I walked into the space that should have been my home. It was beautifully decorated, filled with furniture I'd never seen. There were photos of Victoria and Damien on the walls, looking happy and in love. Damien appeared from the kitchen, carrying 2 cups of coffee. When he saw me, he froze. "Isabella." "Damien." We stared at each other for a long moment. He looked exactly the same dark hair, same blue eyes, same handsome face. But something in his expression was different, colder, like he was looking at a stranger. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "I came to get answers. I came to understand how you could disappear from my life and reappear in my sister's." "I didn't disappear from your life," he said calmly. "Our relationship ended months ago. Our relationship ended 2 weeks ago when you stopped coming home." "Isabella," Victoria said gently, "you're confused. You and Damien broke up in January. You told me yourself that you were just friends." "I never told you that. I never said that." But as I looked at Victoria's face, I could see that she genuinely believed what she was saying. Somehow, Damien had convinced her that a completely different version of events had occurred. "How long have you two been together?" I asked. 4 months, Victoria said. "Since February?" "We were living together in February. We were planning our future together." Damien stepped forward, his voice gentle and concerned. "Isabella, I think you might be having some kind of psychological episode. You're remembering things that didn't happen." "I'm not crazy." "Of course you're not crazy," he said soothingly. "But you've been under a lot of stress lately. Maybe you should talk to someone, a professional." The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced, that for a moment I almost believed him. Had I imagined our relationship? Had I created a fantasy that felt real? But then I remembered the apartment deposit. The lease we'd signed together. "What about our lease?" I demanded. "What about the deposit we put down together?" "Isabella," Victoria said gently. Damien put the deposit down. "You were never on the lease. I felt like I was losing my mind. But I had evidence. I had bank records, text messages, photos. I have proof," I said. "I have messages, pictures, receipts." "Of course you do," Damien said. "We were friends. We spent time together. But that doesn't mean we were in a romantic relationship." He was rewriting our entire history, and somehow Victoria believed his version instead of mine. "Victoria," I said desperately, "you have to believe me. We were together. He lived with me. He told me he loved me. We were planning to get married." Victoria looked at Damien, and he gave her a sad, knowing look. "Isabella has been struggling with some delusions," he said quietly. "I tried to help her, but she became obsessed with the idea that we were in a relationship. That's not true." "I'm sorry," Victoria said, and she looked genuinely sorry. "I think you should leave now." I was being erased. My entire relationship, my entire life with Damien was being rewritten as a delusion. And my own sister believed him instead of me. That was 6 months ago. Victoria and Damien are married now. They had a small ceremony last month. Intimate, beautiful, everything I dreamed our wedding would be. I wasn't invited. My family believes I had some kind of psychological breakdown. They think I became obsessed with Damien and created an elaborate fantasy about our relationship. They've suggested therapy, they've recommended medication, they've been patient and kind and completely convinced that I'm mentally ill. Because that's what Damien does. He doesn't just steal your life, he makes everyone believe you never had a life to begin with. I've spent months trying to prove what happened to me. I hired a private investigator to look into Damien's background. What we found was terrifying. Damien. Rodriguez isn't his real name. His real name is Marcus Chen, and he's done this before. 3 times, in 3 different cities over the past 10 years. He targets women who are close to their families. He isolates them systematically, destroys their relationships, and then disappears into their support systems. In Chicago, he dated a woman named Jennifer for 2 years, isolated her from everyone she loved, and then married her younger sister. In Samdeen, Austin, he did the same thing to a woman named Rachel, ultimately ending up with her best friend. In Portland, it was me and Victoria. The pattern is always the same. He studies his target's relationships, identifies the person closest to her, and then manipulates both women until he can transition from one to the other seamlessly. He's a relationship predator, an emotional vampire who feeds on love and trust and connection, and then discards his victims once he's consumed everything they have to give. The private investigator tried to help me build a case, but there's no law against what Damien does. Emotional manipulation isn't illegal. Gaslighting isn't a crime, and his victims are so isolated, so discredited, that no one believes them anyway. I've tried to contact Jennifer and Rachel, the other women he destroyed. Jennifer won't talk to me. I think she still believes she's the crazy one. Rachel answered my call, but she hung up when I started explaining. The trauma is too deep. That's why I'm telling this story. Not for revenge. I know I'll never get justice. But as a warning, if someone you love starts pulling away from friends and family, pay attention. If someone you care about begins making excuses for a partner's controlling behavior, don't give up on them. If you see the signs of isolation and manipulation, keep reaching out, even when they push you away, because the person they're with might be planning to take your place in their life. Victoria still doesn't believe me. She thinks Damien saved her from her unstable sister. She thinks their love story is romantic and destined. She has no idea that she's living my life in my apartment, with my engagement ring, following the exact same script Damien used with me, and someday, maybe in a year, maybe in 5 years, he'll start the process again. He'll find Victoria's closest relationship and begin the slow work of destroying it, because that's what he does. That's who he is, a parasite who feeds on love and leaves nothing but emptiness behind. I'm telling you this story because I don't want anyone else to go through what I went through. I don't want anyone else to lose themselves so completely that they can't even prove they existed. Trust your instincts. Believe the victims. And remember, love shouldn't require you to lose yourself. Real love adds to your life. It doesn't replace it. And if someone is asking you to choose between them and everyone else you care about, choose everyone else. Because someone who truly loves you would never make you choose. My name is Isabella. I existed. I mattered. And what happened to me was real. Even if no one believes me, even if I'm the only one who remembers, it was real.